2026. I know it's still kind of weird to say it, but as we head into the new year, I know something all parents and kids are thinking, how do we get better this year? Well, more ice time sounds great, but between school, family time, and just being a kid, it's not always realistic, right? So what really helps young players grow is hockey IQ, learning how to read the game, make confident decisions, and understand why things happen on the ice. And that's where our title sponsor, NHL Sense Arena, continues to come through. Sense Arena uses VR and mixed reality training to help players work on the mental side of hockey. It gives kids meaningful reps, helping them build confidence, awareness, and strong habits at their own pace. So for skaters, that means better reads and puck control, and for goalies, faster reactions and improved tracking. And for coaches and parents, it means purposeful development that supports what's being taught at the rink. So to get started with our special offer, visit sensearena.com/OKPH and use the code OKPH to save an extra $25 off an annual plan or headset bundle if you need one. Once again, that's sensearena.com/OKPH. Use the code OKPH. Get yourself that discount. That's 50% off the standard monthly cost, plus an additional $25 when you use the code OKPH. Welcome to 2026. Let's get you into this episode right now. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Elias, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Bonelli. Christy Casciano Burns is on assignment today, and our guest today is someone whose perspective always makes us stop and think. Literally, that is how the episode was formed today. Matt Dumouchelle is joining us again. He's a hockey development consultant, a writer, and a returning friend of the show, as I said. You've probably seen his work on the Coaches site, where his series Hockey Factories dives deep into how elite programs around the world develop players and teams. We did a whole episode on it. Make sure you check it out. His last name is spelled Dumouchelle, pronounced Dumouchelle. It's one of my favorite names to say. He recently shared a post that caught a lot of attention during this year's World Junior Hockey Championship. I do have to say, I know a lot of you know what the World Junior Hockey Championship is. Happens every year around the new year. It is the best young talent in the world, basically an Olympic-type setting. It is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tournament on the planet. I am not exaggerating that. I think the only thing that trumps the World Junior Championship is probably the Stanley Cup playoffs. Okay, so this is a top event, and it begged to question his post, and we're going to give you some context on this in a minute. But the question is, are we building teams or just chasing superstars too early? And it's a very, very poignant question because as the hockey world's talking about, Canada was eliminated in the semifinal. The USA was actually eliminated prior to that. And it's creating a lot of questions. Now, Canada has not won this tournament in 3 seasons now. I know that's a pain to a lot of our Canadian listeners. I'm going to read you a small portion of his post. And then throughout the episode, we are really going to discuss other aspects of it. But this is going to be an important discussion about the future of hockey development. And it's going to be really interesting for you to listen to. So here's just the first part of the post before we dive into the conversation. So this is what he wrote. Canada population, 41 million. Czechia population, 10.9 million youth hockey players. In Canada, 600,000 plus youth hockey players. In Czechia, 85,000 plus public ice rinks. In Canada, 7,000 public ice rinks. In Czechia, 220. And yet for the third year in a row, Canada has been eliminated by Czechia in the World Junior Hockey Championship. We should give quick congratulations to Sweden, who won the whole thing. Congratulations to them. But let me just say, Matt, welcome back to another episode. We're really going to dive into the lessons that you've uncovered from countries like Czechia and what it all means for youth hockey in North America. But again, thank you so much for coming back and giving us time today.
No, awesome to see you guys again. Hope you had a great holiday. Excited to catch up again.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you here. So let me just pick up where we left off, right? You compared Canada's massive resources. You could do something similar with the USA to Czechia's smaller footprint, yet they eliminated Canada 3 straight years, okay? What did that result in quote from the Czech coach, Patrick Augusta, where he said, hey, we're a little more hungry than Canada, reveal to you about hockey development culture? Because I thought that was an interesting thing to hear as well.
Yeah, to me, that quote really stood out. In a few different ways. The way that he makes the point of talking about being a little more hungry. The guys showed that they're a team. They showed character and will, and you see that with these European clubs in general when they're playing in these big tournaments. Latvia does not have superstars. They did pretty well last year. They beat Canada last year in the round robin, right? And sent everybody into a frenzy that year too. Finland does not have ultimate superstars, but they're a great team. They play a great system. They love puck possession, and that's the way that they win hockey games. And you see that in a lot of different European models where Canada and the US in general, we talk about the flash, we talk about the superstars, the incredible skill, which I don't think anybody is or should be questioning. The top end talent that gets developed in Canada and the US is better than some of these other countries. But the team aspect of things is, again, it offsets all of that, especially when you're playing these one-game elimination, winner-takes-all kind of tournaments.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, well, I was going to say, so I've come. It's so funny because in watching, I love Matt's series on the hockey factories and learning what the leaders in our industry are doing in their own internal, ecosystems of hockey, and I think that is and then based off of your observations, Matt, of the World Juniors, and then the subsequent, social media blast, from everyone all over the place, chiming in that, ranging from, well, that's the best system in the world to we have to rebuild everything in North America and, from the ground up. Yeah. And I think what happens is that I've really come full circle on this because I think of my, in the last 6 or 7 years, I've been very involved in the youth brick level, Quench series, Rose series, elite of the elite. Now, again, I know throwing around elite, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think when we talk about this, the focus is on your conversation was more around what did those teams do in that short period of time rather than, oh, guess what? They have a better development system because they have much better players. And I don't think that's the case. Because I think I think there is such a great advantage when you look at those numbers and you say, Czechia, what were the numbers on their development model for youth?
There's about 600,000 plus youth hockey players in Canada and about 85,000 in Czechia.
Right. And I personally think that because of those European countries like that, it's their advantage that those kids play together longer for longer periods of time at earlier ages. Because here it's cutthroat. If I'm not the top player on my team in my district, I'm going to another. So our players never play as the best teams. Mm-hmm. All these European players, if you really look at the numbers, they are playing together as a team longer. So yes, they're developing, but I think what your point is my God, you're putting these kids, and I think that hunger was a great, a great message because that coach and that system have those kids longer together, and say, listen, we are us against the world, where Canada or the U.S. is just throwing a bunch of kids on a bus and going to play in a game and saying, hey, you got to play for your country. I'm like, I don't know, I haven't seen this guy in 7 months. So I think it's a slippery slope to say they have a better development model and we have to throw ours away rather than say, well, those teams just have a better team tournament model maybe because of the way they structure how they pick their teams.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there, Mike, really. And one of the comments that I saw throughout when people were reacting to the post was, if Macklin Celebrini wasn't there, that makes a big difference. How many players are in the NHL that were eligible to play in the tournament? Sure, nobody's saying that we don't develop players very well. I mean, if you were to list the top 10 players in the NHL, a good handful of them are going to be Canadian. A good handful of them are going to be, nobody's disputing that by any means. But I think you're right. I think the way that we look at development as a whole, we almost feel like, and we're talking about 11, 12, 13-year-olds, younger in some cases of that, is that, once we've found somebody that's a little bit faster than everybody else, we put them in a different area or a different pathway than the other kids that are there. And it's just not the way to do it. That when we talk about the European clubs and kind of the point that I was going to get across with that post, and hope I did, is, when you look at small countries, we did a feature on Latvia last year with Hockey Factories, or I guess it was this previous season that we did. They have no choice. They have to develop every kid for as long as possible, because instead of being in Canada where we have 600,000 kids registered and, you cut one kid, there's a line of hundreds of them behind you. In Latvia, you don't know. I mean, if you've got 200 kids enrolled, by the end of, U17, life changes, interest changes. Oh, that's you're looking to put together the best 25 kids. That's a tough percentage to pull from if you're selecting kids at a 11, 13-year-old age and dividing them from everybody else.
Yeah, I got a few things I want to dive into here. And I should say this too. I should have said it in the open. If it would behoove all of you to take a look at Matt's post on LinkedIn, not just that post, but everything you write, Matt, is really insightful and awesome. So please do that. One of the things I want to bring up kind of to continue this conversation is that I'll use the word panic or the disappointment in Canada for this team losing. I think it's a little overboard. I really do. Like we're pointing all the fingers at kids, and I know it's been 3 years in a row. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand that, but it's overboard for me from a fan perspective, right? It's a tournament. Like it's a one and done tournament. There's always a chance you're going to lose. I also think that when we put all of the onus on Canada as a loser, I'm not saying that came across so harsh. I didn't mean it to. I'm just saying, I didn't mean it like that. Toronto, I did not mean that the way it sounded. I heard it in my headphones. I did. What I'm saying is Canada losing sometimes takes away from, hey, Czechia and Sweden are getting better as well, right? Like the hockey globe is getting better. I don't like to take things away from that. Look, I'm American. My team didn't do well either. Okay. But Matt, to your point, and this is where I'm kind of, I agree with you, right? And for the audience here too, like the youth hockey audience, I am so envious of hockey development in other countries, and the way that they develop their players. Because you said it, like you use I'll use the word identify. We identify players and pluck them. And then we use all our resources as Hockey Canada, USA Hockey to develop those players. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but it's different. You said it. You don't have the opportunity to do that in other countries. You must develop players. And I think what that uncovers is that, the kid who's not skating amazing at 11, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to be great, right? They don't have a choice. And, that leads me to the next question here. It was from your post. It's a great quote. Canada spends 95% of its resources developing 5% of its players. I mean, that really hits home. Why do you think that the top-down model persists? And what are the practical steps that all youth teams can take to make every player better instead of filtering out? Because I think that is a big problem. Not to mention, I know we have higher populations in North America, but I've always said this. Are we getting the best athletes from these countries? Because we're constantly telling people, no, you're not good enough, or we're pricing people out. You see where I'm going with this? Like 95% of resources to 5% of players. That bothers me a little bit, Matt. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, for sure. And I think you're bang on with that. And that's a line that somebody that I was working with in just conversation in Europe had mentioned. And, that really brought pause to me of like, that's not far off. That's a pretty good assessment because, we love and pride ourselves in Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid and Connor, those guys, those are Canadian players through and through. But I think we're so quick to pull the trigger on younger kids who, I go back to Latvia again. Bob Hartley, I had on and did an interview with because he was the national team coach, and he was the guy who really changed the mindset in that country of, we're playing 5-on-5, whether we're playing against Austin Matthews or we're playing against Nathan McKinnon. Like there's 5 of you, there's 5 of them. Right. You go into a tournament that's already down 1-0 in your head. You're never gonna compete, right? So his part with development is you never know that 10-year-old that's a little bit of a deer on skates or is a little bit bigger than everybody else. At 16, who knows? That we don't introduce checking until 13. We're not playing hockey before 13. It's it's more of a pond model than anything else, right? So
yeah, I got to reiterate. I tell this to parents all the time. I know it's a small deviation that before checking is in the sport, you're playing a little bit of a different sport.
For sure.
And I think it's so important that parents who believe that their kid is uber talented, and they may be, don't get me wrong, that when someone can put a shoulder through your kid's chest, that is when you will find out how talented they really are. And my point with that, Matt, is just be realistic with that. That's part of the development. It's important that you know that. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you're right. When it comes to the development model, I and I hate to say it, I feel like so much of it is triggered around money. End of the day, there's a lot of people that can make a lot of money by telling you that your kid's elite or that you need this or you need that. And do we have all of the ice to be able to get all of these players the same amount of training? We don't. Nobody does. There's no country that does. So that's where we kind of end up falling into this individual coaching model. And that's where we escape from this team concept that European clubs do so well and play so well in these tournaments. We all have individual skating coaches. We've got shooting coaches for individuals now. Goalies have individual coaches. There's so much of that around. It's hard to blend that into a team concept if you're working with a kid one-on-one. So, Mike, like you said a little bit earlier on, not only are we bringing in players from all kinds of different junior programs and leagues and all that to create one team for the World Juniors, but we've got so many kids playing even junior hockey, younger than that in minor hockey, that aren't being taught team concepts. They're being taught how to skate faster, shoot harder, and in those individual type of mindsets where you've got a kid that can go past three defensemen with no problem at all now, just the handles that they have and all that. But if they end up in the corner, they don't know what to do. Right? They don't know where their teammates are going to be. They don't know how to move the puck, and that's the team model that I feel like we're missing, where Europe embraces.
Yeah, and I don't even know. Like, I don't know. I've changed my tune on this so much only because of the involvement I see at the younger levels with let's call it what it is, elite teams, right? If you have if you are in like this brick phenomenon right now in the last 10 years, and you look at those statistics from kids that are selected at an early age, these are kids that are plucked out of these regions. That 85%, and these aren't make believe numbers. 85% of a kid on a brick team, like in my region, is playing Division I college hockey when they get after 10 years old. So at 10 years old, 85 or more percent, and the kids that aren't playing college hockey are playing college lacrosse or college baseball, like they're elite athletes. So I think there is. I said so. I've the last like couple of years, I've really pushed back on the early identification. And I think if you told Sweden and Finland and Czech or whoever else, and you said, listen, what you can't do is the kids that are in these little villages and these towns all around Europe, they have to stay with their own town. And they can't play together. They're going to be the best kid on their team. He's going to be the best kid on his team. That model wouldn't exist. They're it's funny, but they're benefiting from being small. They're benefiting from the fact that they have to consolidate their kids. Because again, like I said, if I'm a kid in Connecticut and I don't make the top team in my region, I can go to New York and play on the quote unquote best team in New York. And so it's, because I think these kids are unbelievably talented. Like when you watch those games, you're like, that looks like a pro game. It looks like a college hockey game.
Oh yeah.
And I think the pushback from me, because I'm all in, like early identification. I didn't, but when you really look at it, you say, holy crap, like 85% of the kids that were selected at 10 years old are going on to play Division I college hockey. So somebody must be able to see it. So the question now becomes, are we doing a disservice to the fact that we're not building these super teams? I mean, Russia did it. This is before anybody even knew anything, right? They pluck all these kids out of all these places and they put them in
What?
Siberia, and they'd win gold after gold after gold after
Yeah,
gold.
I mean, you got to be careful with that one, Mike. I mean, that was under duress. I mean, you know what I
Well,
mean?
but
Like,
no, but I'm saying,
yeah.
but listen, I see a lot of kids under duress right now. So
That's
I
fair
think
too.
It's really just,
True.
I think
Yeah.
it's more. I think it's more of like the small countries and these small places are benefiting from the fact that they're, like Matt's saying, they're forced to develop the best kids from these little towns into one place because the kids have no options. They can't stay in their own town and play.
Mhm.
Where us in Canada and the US, you could pick 7 teams that are the best teams.
Well,
And I think it still comes back to, I guess the question is, are we building the best teams? Are we building the best
Well,
players?
it's an ethical
And can the best
question,
players
too.
then play on the best team?
yeah.
Mhm.
Look, I'm just gonna tag on to that, Matt. I want you to answer it, but it's a little bit of an ethical question too. All right. Okay, so we've identified you early, Mike. Let's use your stats at face value. Like, okay, the identifying works,
Mhm.
right? But what about the other 95%?
Who cares?
Right. Well, that's the ethical question.
Mhm.
Is like should governing bodies be saying that? All right. And like that's an actual question I'm asking. I don't have the answer for that, right? Like because there's going to be people saying, no, we want to win. We got to pick the top people and develop the top people.
Mm.
Then there's also the ethical question of, well, wait a minute here. This is youth sports.
Right.
All right. And is it the responsibility of Hockey Canada and Team USA Hockey? Is it their responsibility to care? Now, where I sit, yes, it is, in my opinion, because you have a responsibility to grow the game. I actually think there is a version where both of these things can kind of coexist. But I think it's top heavy right now.
Well, then
Matt,
they have to cut themselves out of the elite model. Like again, because I think Matt had somebody made a great post in Matt's one of Matt's comments was the objective of European teams and these small market programs is to develop the most kids for the longest period of time. And
Right.
I think that's a great understanding of how Europe develops. I'm in Norway a lot, right? They don't cut kids until they don't even make cuts until 13.
Right. Yeah, and you're right, Mike. And the way that gets brought up in those European countries and the way it is just the model that they have, right? We're in North America, it's it gets pumped into it, especially in Ontario where I am. Like if you don't get drafted in the OHL, it's pretty much done. Like that's it for you. Where WHL is even younger. Where in Europe, the model that they're going after is they're trying to fill their first teams, right? So there's a lot of countries, a few programs that I've done research on that the mandate of the first team is that 50% of their players come through their organization, so they're not just out buying the best players from across all over the country, all over the world. So they have a longer runway because ultimately they're looking at the 23-year-old window maybe for when that kid is ready to make the jump to their first team. Where here, I mean, it's 16, it's 17, it's 18, it's every year all the way through. So they have a longer runway for sure. But what they do with that is they get to include more people for longer because nobody's going to argue those numbers, and the numbers are incredible when you look at the kids that play elite programs and back and forth like that. But ultimately it's a different system. They have a different mindset of the whole thing, and not to say one's right and one's wrong, but the way that they've been able to do that over the last 10 to 15 years, the evolution of the skill that's coming from Europe has been fascinating.
Yeah,
but it's funny when you're good, Lee. Sorry.
No, you go.
No,
all
I'm
I just say is that it's different.
It's just funny though when you're in Europe and you're dealing with the leaders in these European programs. They're starting to they're swaying towards the North American model. Like they want earlier specialization. They want more travel. They want to expose their kids to international play. Where before it was like, I remember, and maybe like I'll use Norway as one example. Like maybe that's why they can't get on the world stage because they're not allowing their kids to go out of the country until they're 15, 16, 17 years old. Like, you know what I mean? Like as far as like a team goes, like you have to kind of make, you have to hide you have to do it on your own. The national program's not doing that. And I think that's where like our own national program is doing it just internally because we're able to do it because of our vast, the infrastructure we have. But I think to Matt's point of like these forced development models, it's almost like the way it should be, right? That if you live in a region, you shouldn't be able to pop out of that region. You should force the development to implode on itself and develop it. You know, if you live outside this place, then you can't go you can't go get on a plane and go play for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, you know, we have that option here. You really don't have that option in Finland. You know, to say, oh, I'm going to go play in Germany, you know, because my kid's the best kid. So I think it's an interesting, because there's no doubt about the fact that the European teaching model is what we all want to aspire to.
Oh, yeah.
More kids, more touches, tons of reps. Positive play.
Well, the coaching,
there's no doubt about that.
Like, we got to talk about the coaching here too. Like, we're talking about resources and how much funds go to the top 5%. Well, Matt, I think you really opened up my eyes in Hockey Factories and other things of how coaching works in youth hockey, because there's a major investment into the coaching of new hockey players in these countries. Now, I gotta preface this too. Populations are a lot smaller, so you can do this, right? You can't necessarily do this in North America. I wish we could. You know, North America's version of this is, well, we put our coaches through CEP, right? Coaching education programs, and you know, those are what they are. I'm not going to comment on that, but you know, I'll tell you right now, when you're paying your youth coaches, you're going to get better development. And you know, one of my favorite models, I cannot remember what country did this, but was where they had kids together for 3 seasons at a time with one coach. I mean, I'm telling you, as someone who does youth coaching, I would love that. I would love to know I've got kids for 3 years. First off, I wouldn't have to deal with every December and January of like, well, we're looking at other programs, we're looking at other teams, and I have to be like, okay, go look at other teams.
It's actually the best model for challenge too. It's like, hey, coach, you think you're a coach? Here's a bunch of 8-year-olds. You got to keep them until they're 11. No choice. You want to see somebody work their ass off to get those kids better because they're going to be stuck with this team. You know, and I think going back to your point, Lee, about paying coaches. Listen, I've said this since the day I started as a hockey director. If I take one tournament a year, one tournament a year is about $35,000 collectively of my team. You can't hire the best coach around your community that's going to a 27-year-old kid that just played college hockey or pro hockey that's going to be with your team for 2 or 3 years. You pay that kid $36,000. He's not going to do it. You'll have a line outside the door. Yeah. But we choose to do these other things. We're choosing, like in Europe, which is great. You go in, you have to be basically a teacher. You have to go through this whole certification process, and you're paid. Like you go in the office every day. You're going to the office to work. Like you're going to the office to coach. Our coaches are there just saying, hey, what's the best deal I could get at the Marriott this weekend? So I think it's just a different mindset of development and focus. And I think you mentioned it too. It's all about, you know, if we're you know, clicking off the wins, and not the win is, wow, I've got 95% of my team is playing next year. Then that's a whole nother you know, discussion, I think.
Matt, can you tell them we're passionate about this, Matt? Can you tell them?
Great, man. That's why when my phone lights up and it's a message from Lee, I get excited because I know we're going to have a great conversation just through text, let alone when we get a chance to get together here. But no, you know, Mike and Lee, you kind of mentioned that too about coach development and that. And I think one thing that we're missing just in general, and this isn't a comparison, North America, Europe, anything like that, is just that support part for coaches. I mean, as far as educating coaches or setting evaluations for coaches or, you know, expectations or whatever that looks like. I mean, how many boards do you guys know of or work with that hire a coach and announce the coach in whatever February or whatever it is, season starts in August. You talk to that coach in December and ask him, like, you know, what is going to be like, how are you evaluating a good season one way or another?
Love it.
They number one, either haven't been told because they've just been handed the keys to the kingdom and you know, go run your team. It's your team. That's great, which breaks up, you know, alignment within your organization and all that. And if you want to get me going on alignment, we may have to book another session. But, you know, if we haven't even helped the coaches understand what the expectation of them is in their role, then how are we at the end of the year to say this coach did a good job or a bad job or whatever? You know, Mike, maybe to your point, that U9 coach, his only responsibility is to make sure that every kid that's on his team this year tries out next year. You know, maybe add that they can skate backwards. You know, that's it. Right? That's all we're looking at. Where, you know, at U16 or U17, now we got to win, right? Now you have to be in these competitions. You've got to be in these tournaments. You've got to show that this team is developed, that these players are good. And now we've had that process or that pipeline for multiple years to build up to that point where everybody's on the same page, just adding pieces as we go.
I'm gonna tell you this, Matt. I love that you're bringing this up. All right, for a few reasons. We recently, this past year, did an episode about benchmarks in youth hockey, and we basically looked at every age level and said, by and large, it's not true for every single kid, but this is what your kid should be able to do by the end of 10U, 12U, 14U. This is where they should start, and this is where we should finish. The amount of emails we got from people, like shocked,
really,
that, well, that's it? Like, that's all they should be able to do? And it wasn't outrage. It was more like, I'm really glad you did this because my expectations were so far ahead. Right? Like, and just an example, it was like power play tactics in 10U. Guys, not a thing. Not really a thing. If you can do it, you're way advanced at that point.
Right.
Okay? Like, and it's like, well, what should you be in 10U? Skating is still number one. It's like it's like the ability to shoot the puck with accuracy is actually the end of 10U, and that would be an advanced skill.
Right. And that's, carry the puck and be able to make a cross ice pass.
Right.
Like,
So
we're not trying to that's where we get into creating superstars, right?
And you've in 10U, again, listen to the episode, my friends, but like the idea was like, tactically, it's like just understanding you're on offense or defense and maybe some basic positional elements of that. It's really elementary at that age. So I'm bringing that up because of what you just said. In my experience, and if anyone out there, Mike, anyone, Matt, has a different experience, let me know. But almost none of the coaches are coming in with that information. It's not their fault because they're almost all volunteers. And I'm going to say, God bless every one of you that volunteers. This is not a criticism of you. But I don't think anyone's gone up to these coaches, 10U, 14U, whatever, and said, these are the benchmarks of skill and IQ for this age. This is what I want to see. I don't think there's this is what our priorities are as an organization, right? I'm sure they have it written on their website somewhere, but there's no talk about it. All right. I'm sure some do this better than others. And I'm bringing this up, Matt. I'm going to talk to you about this off the air too. I'm going to tease our audience that I'm working on something here for the next season. I'm going to report back to everybody. All right. But I'm going to be in a position to talk to a team next year about what my goals are for the team. And it's a younger team. And I'm going to be honest with you all, winning hockey games is not high on the list. However, that is an outcome based on my list.
Right.
Okay. Number one being love the game, which has got to be at every level. Number two being the development of your child with the benchmarks of this age level. And then I'm going to explain what those benchmarks are to all the parents. And I believe I will get buy-in from that. This is what my goal is. And then here's how I'm going to apply it. I'm not going to tell everybody my plan right now. Super secret. I'll let you know.
What a teaser. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll find out, Matt. I'll tell you and Mike, but audience listen. But my point is, has anybody ever seen anything like that? Or is it just a quick parent meeting and, hey, your kids are going to have a lot of fun this year, which is not wrong. I'm not criticizing that. I'm asking, our coaches, do you know the benchmarks for the age group you're coaching?
And what will get filled in the middle is lost in translation, right? What happens if the board hasn't communicated to your coaches, this is your expectations, this is what you're going to deliver on this year, that when we sit and talk at the end of the year, we're checking boxes, yes or no, this coach did this coach didn't do this, whatever that looks like. If you're not having the conversation from the coach to the parent, this is what this year is going to look like. This is what our practices are going to look like. This is what we're teaching. This is what we're not teaching. We're in no hurry here. This is what that's going to look like.
Imagine that. We're in no hurry here. Can you imagine that?
Well, and what gets filled in the middle, number one, from parents, is if you don't have a clear communication pipeline between the coaches and the parents, parents will translate to whatever they want to hear to the best benefit of their kid. That's nobody's fault. That's being a good parent. If you tell me my kid is not great in 3 subjects in school and unbelievable in one of them, I will get super excited about that one and probably push the other ones aside for now. That's just how some parents will react to that. But what fills the void, if we haven't explained, here's the skills that we're going to learn, here's what we're going to do on a regular basis, is winning. Because everybody wants to win. So if you haven't explained to the parent group, if you haven't explained to your as your board, to your coaches, if we go 0-14 and at the end of the year, these kids have a pizza party and they're sad to leave the rink and they can't wait to come back next year, nobody cares. Yeah. If you haven't said that to them and that's not communicated from top to bottom, what fills the void is winning. And now comes January, February, we haven't even won a game yet this year. This coach has no idea what they're doing. They put this kid out there. Oh, that kid seems like he's been on the ice a lot longer than the other kid. No, that's not fair. We're not even winning anyways. This kid's no good. He can't score. It all just becomes noise. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we didn't build out what this is supposed to look like from the top down.
I'm just going to bow tie this from what I said too, and then Mike, I'd love your thoughts on this too. Is that one of the misconceptions, not the right word. One of the side effects of my style of coaching, to your point, Matt, is sometimes I think people think, well, Lee doesn't really care about winning. And it's like, man, that is not true. I mean, I'm very competitive. I want to win every game. My belief is if we truly want to win games, we have to develop the entire team. This is bringing it back to the purpose of the episode. I can ride my 4 best players all season. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, probably won't win. All right, because we're going to run to a team at some point that figures that out and can shut it down. Yeah. But if I can develop everybody, and that might mean different things for different players. So again, I'm not saying I need to turn everybody into one of those top 4 players. What I'm saying is I need everyone to get better so that when the time comes, we can execute. Right. And in my coaching experience, I have seen that happen enough times to say with confidence, that's the way it should be done. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And I don't think it's being done enough.
No, and I'm not going to, I want Mike to jump in here. I feel like I'm jumping in and then Lee jumps in.
You're the guest, Matt.
You're part of this. You're part of this too, right, Lee? Like you get that from what you're saying. The evolution of that is you're creating a deeper hockey player from every player that's there, right? You can ride the top 3-6 players that you have. That's great. But, they will have to learn at some point how to kill a penalty because they can score 40 goals when they're U9, but how many U18 kids do you know that scored 40 goals that go to the OHL or USHL that have to score 6?
Matt, I can give you a great example.
And if we haven't taught it, then we're lost there, right?
I'll give you a great example also, because I think people get lost of oh, he's just trying to get everybody better. And that's true. But it's I'll give you a good example. I've got a youth team right now, younger half. I've got 4 skaters who are very talented. They're AA players. It's obvious. Okay. And when I coach this team, it's I don't lie to the kids. I'm you can all be at that level by the end of the year. They can't. There's no way. However, I do talk about roles. Mm-hmm. And I do talk about, we have some kids with expert skating ability, and we have kids who need to work on their skating. And I explained that if we work on our skating and you can get to the net with your stick down and ready to shoot, that player will get you the puck. I'm teaching a team dynamic. Mm-hmm. And I'm very clear. I'm not expecting the skater who's not great to do that play. I want you to respond to your teammate. I want your teammate to see you there, and we will build the skill sets that make the team cohesive. I'm not saying just go to the net and wait. I'm saying there's a lot of dynamics here that we have to teach the team to be a team. Mike, to your point earlier, to me, that's part of coaching. Keeping in mind, too, that those top 4 players have plenty to work on as well. Yeah. All right. I joke about it all the time, making toe drags at the blue line for no reason. Don't need to be doing that. All right. Yeah. But here's the thing. That team is winning games now because everyone is developing within the team environment, and they are developing skill sets to complement each other without me ignoring the range of standards that we talked about. Yeah.
Because both kids are learning something, right? If you've got a superstar kid that can skate, now we're teaching you vision. Now we're teaching you to see where your teammates are, to skate with your head up, to be aware of your surroundings. The kid that can't skate very well, now we're teaching him positioning. Now we're teaching him the ability to create time and space, which is an invaluable thing for a hockey player too. Listen, puck goes across the score, literally everybody wins.
Well, and I'm going to say this too. I'm talking as a parent, as a coach, as a dad. When it happened last game, one of our lesser skilled players went to the front of the net, and scored on a rebound, that kid was revitalized. And when I watch him come to practice now, he's a different human being because now he knows he can score, right? Yeah. That's a huge part of this development is that confidence. Here's the adverse of this. This is one of my most proud moments. One of the talented kids, I mean, these kids love shooting top corner and missing the net, right? He saw the kid in front and shot low. And he told me, like, hey, I saw he was there, so I shot low, and there's a rebound. Now, that is a massive, fundamental hockey IQ skill.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm dying for my players to come to me and say, hey, I saw that.
Yeah.
And, it's by the way, I didn't go, I told you if you want to know. No, I said, hey, that's great that you saw that. Now build on that.
Right.
Sorry, I'm on a milk crate. Mike, I want you to chime in here too, because we do have to come back to we're talking about the topic, but I want to keep going with the article.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think going, and again, this is why I am the best at what I do. And it's because I listen to Matt and Lee, and I read and I educate. I run so every organization I work with, we run a coaching academy. That's the first thing we do. And that was all, and a lot of that was, a lot of that I got from, Hockey Factories. A lot of that I got from watching the room and saying, wow, we always done this, but we could do this better. Why are we approaching our coaches about their development when in January and saying, oh my God, how are we going to fix this? Let's be proactive. I mean, we just had Haley Wynn on, right, about process development. Like, what is your process to get better? You can't just say, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. I want to know how am I getting there?
Right.
What are my little pieces to get there? Well, our coaches don't my frustration is when I walk into a room of elite coaches, paid coaches. I'm not talking about the dad or mom that's getting off the train and running in to the locker room. I'm talking about these yahoos that say, I get paid, I'm a pro coach, and there's crickets in the room. Like I don't know. I hate to say it, but like, it's embarrassing. Like I am offended to call myself a coach when I see the coaches that I work with that say they're coaches. I'm like, you're not a coach. You're maybe you're a bill collector, and maybe you're a travel coordinator, and maybe you're you're great. You can see skill and play it, but can you develop skill and mold it and take it to a level where you can go with 80,000 warriors and beat 600,000 warriors?
That's
like, how do you do that? Then you do that by developing all of the kids, not at the same time and not in the same way, but that's why it is so I'm sure teachers think the same way. I don't know. I think car mechanics think the same way. Like, don't call yourself a car mechanic. You don't know what the hell. You don't know. So like, I'm like, oh, what's a lug wrench? Who the hell knows? But I do know what a left wing lock is, and I do know what a breakout is, and I do know what the strong side and weak side.
And you're constantly teaching yourself more, Mike. That's the other part of it.
But again, this is what's so offensive. Like, when you look at the European model and you look at the best American and Canadian models, it's the coaches that are you see them at every coaches site conference. You see them at every NHLCA conference. You see them all the time on the free webinars that go out there. And like me, I'm a guest. I'm going, well, I'm looking at the guest list. I'm like, that guy coaches in the OHL. That guy coaches in NCAA. This isn't like the 9U coach that's winning 78 games a year and never ever educates himself just because he picked 3 good players and a goalie. So I think what happens is, going back to the original premise of team, skill, region, it all starts with who are we putting in place to work with our kids from boards down, right? Like, who's the head of the snake? And then what is that person doing to develop everyone? Because we all know, whether you made brick at 10 and then you went on to play at Boston College, there's a million other kids in between there that we need to be able to work with. And I think what everybody wants to do is chase the best 10-year-old. And my premise on this all the time has been since the day I started coaching. If you don't make the same team as the best 10-year-old you just competed against, but you continue to use the same development model to catch them, you will never catch them.
Of course.
If that 10-year-old is playing 80 games and then you want to play 80 games, you're never going to catch them. You'll always be behind. You have to change your model. And that's what Europe did, right? That's what these other programs did. They changed their model. They said, Let's put all the kids on the ice. Let's flood the stations. Let's give them puck touches. We can't continue to keep identifying the best 8-year-olds and hoping that when they're 18 years old, they can compete on the world stage. Right. Women's hockey is seeing it right now. Women's hockey is getting closer and closer and closer because somebody's saying, more girls, more girls, more girls. If we get more girls at the bottom of the pyramid, we're going to compete later on. But it's a hard process, right? I mean, it's hard to look down the road and say, what's the program I'm going to develop what's going to look like in 11 years from now? And that is really hard for a parent, a coach, an administrator. It's really, really difficult.
No, absolutely. And a great quote that I had heard I posted about it a couple of days ago is the comparison of children being like popcorn. And I just thought it was brilliant. Popcorn is in the same pot, it's in the same heat, it's in the same oil, but the kernels pop at different times.
That's awesome,
right? So,
or they don't pop at all.
They don't pop at all. Yeah. Like
that's really good.
If we were talking about repairing cars, this would have been a lot shorter podcast. And if we were talking about cooking, it'd be a lot shorter if you were having me on too. But I just loved the idea because it's so true, and we don't talk about it. Again, not to soapbox this any longer, but we don't talk about this in any other facet of life but youth sports.
Right.
Nobody is looking for the most elite 11-year-old at math.
Right.
Nobody's looking at the kid that, is a community leader in the sense that they volunteer or they work. Like, we're not in search for that. We're looking for, the second Connor McDavid came out, now we're talking about Connor Bedard.
Right.
Second Bedard came out, now we're talking about Gavin McKenna. We're just so excited about the next big one as opposed to the next 100.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like you said, Mike, if we find a way to include the 100, who knows if it's the kid on the list at 87th that at 10 is a terrible skater, but works his bag off. Right. And then at U18, all of a sudden he might be the best kid in the region.
So let's, this is, first off, I love where this conversation's going, and now it's going to come back to this World Junior team a bit too, and then youth sports, right? So here's a question for you guys, and Matt, you're actually the expert on this, right? Our producer Caitlin brought up a great point. Like, the commercialization of sports in North America is actually not limited to hockey. We're seeing this in Little League, we're seeing this in other sports as well. So
piccolo playing, everything.
Yeah, right. So like, I'm not going to say it's a cultural problem, but it's part of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, my first part of this question is, do the European nations, do the Scandinavian nations view sports from that kind of commercialism way? Or are they really just like, hey, we're here this is my job, I'm developing hockey players? You know what I'm asking with that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the answer is both. Like, I think we're fooling ourselves. And one thing that I'm always cautious of when I do podcasts and talk like this is, I come on and talk glowingly about how the European model is in comparison. I mean, there's plenty of programs and countries that are doing it wrong, that are doing it for the money, that are doing it to profitize off of families and are directing kids in the wrong way and all of that. There's that everywhere in every sport. But I think it all connects to how dependent we are on social media, and we're getting everything instantly all the time, and we just want more of it. It translates into so many different things, into like youth sports is the obvious comparison. I was actually talking to somebody a couple of days ago that's with USA Baseball, and he says, it's interesting from a Major League Baseball standpoint, we all love analytics, and I'm a big baseball fan, and I love seeing numbers of this and that and all these other formulas and everything. I think it's great.
Yeah.
We're seeing that at U11 now. People are figuring out how to calculate that and say, I don't know, this kid's whiff rate or this kid's launch angle, or
it's terrifying.
The kid,
right? But I think that
play less than the bat themselves. Like,
I think that push down, right? I mean, it's just from a hockey perspective, comes from all of a sudden when NCAA coaches are recruiting 14-year-olds. Now that 10-year-old doesn't look too far off. So all of a sudden you say, well, a 10-year-old is really in the mix now for that 14-year-old to get looked at. And I think it all compresses, what we're doing at the sport level because of the commercialization and the money and everything else. But I think what people fail to see is that and again, it's just you are as a parent, right? You have the rose colored glasses. You say, well, my kid's the same as that kid that got drafted. I'm like, no,
no, he isn't.
Like I said, but somebody will throw a shingle out and say, no, we are the same as that kid. We are the same level. And people will flock to it, and then they'll flock to that, and then they'll flock to this. And I think it really comes down to, it keeps reverting back to, you can't, and just, we talk about this like on this show, like the people that are listening to the show are probably not the people that we need to listen to the show mostly.
Right.
It's always the people that say, well, that guy's a jackass. Like I see him in the rinks. I go to every rink in the East Coast. He's like, oh, it's that guy, the guy who loves, development and likes all the kids having
cares
fun.
About his kids.
He wants all the kids to be equally treated and all that.
Yeah, everybody gets a ribbon and all that.
I get kumbaya.
That's not who I am. I'm as cutthroat as anyone else. Like I want to win.
That gets lost in all of it for sure.
But I want to win by saying I did that. Like I created that. Like I created that player, and I helped that player find their path. Whereas where I think when we go back to seeing the European countries, to Lee's question, they do. There's no doubt on the whole, they have what they call it. It's a sporting in philosophy. Not like it's about being good, being a good person, and being good at everything.
Yeah.
And not having fun. Because they compete. I mean,
clearly they're winning World Junior Championships.
They compete in soccer. They compete in the other things, but they just do it in a different way, and they don't do it as early. That's
you're right, Mike, and that's kind of there's I've talked about it in a few different features that we've done in Hockey Factories. Again, we talk about the runway. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from some of these programs, Frölunda in Sweden or Jokerit in Finland or Jungalder Mannheim in Germany, that end of the day, what they're hoping the kids get out of this is, because they're small communities, those kids likely aren't moving anywhere else or going to be, it's not like a kid that's in Michigan that's going to go to school in Florida and then, they're moving all over the state. They're hoping the lessons that they're able to teach through sport are going to help make that kid a better doctor and a better lawyer and a better community member down the road, because they're probably going to be a doctor in the community that they're in, right? So what they're looking at is, they're going to have a great experience. If they end up going outside of hockey, then maybe they'll be so happy with their experience they'll buy season tickets. And their kids, maybe they'll put them in that hockey program because they had a great program. Maybe they'll be willing to come back and coach. Maybe they'll sponsor a team. It's very community growth minded, as opposed to again, we all celebrate when there's a kid from our area or region that comes up and plays at the top level or something like that. But and this isn't a brash judgment of anything else, but there's probably a ton of players that come from a certain area that have never given back to that area, don't go home to that area, don't have family there. There's no connection there anymore. But we kind of lose that. But these small communities, the other article that I did this year that talks about that community model so passionately is Hermantown in the state of Minnesota being community-based. I mean, you talk to Patrick Andrews at Hermantown, Mike Snee, who's with the Wild, that was a big part of community hockey and stuff like that. To me, that's what works. That's what fits. You've got 140 teams in the state instead of 8 really good ones in Michigan. And if you're not playing for Little Caesars, you're not that good. But you're developing so many players just within their own communities, and it, the results and the numbers and stuff that Mike Snee's been willing to share with me in comparison to stuff it's fascinating. It works. It still works.
Yeah. Look, I should say this too. We're being, Mike and I, pretty critical of North American hockey development in this episode. It's not like North American hockey development sucks.
No,
right? I mean, we're developing some of the top players in the world all the time, right? So something is correct. All right. I think what we're discussing here, to your point, Matt, is that there is a lot of different ways to do this, and we can do even better than we're doing now. Like, to me, it's all about how can we improve this? Now, I said a few minutes ago about the commercialization of sport. Look, North America is a capitalist environment. Like, we'll commercialize anything we can across the board. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, that's part of our culture, whether you agree with that or not. In geopolitics, I'm not getting into that right now. I'm just talking realities. And in Europe and Scandinavia, it's a bit of a different philosophy on things. And what I'm saying is that I do believe there's a hybrid where all of those things can work together and continue to evolve. Another point I wanted to bring up, going back to the World Junior Championships and the team building aspect of it. Mike brought this up earlier. Like, you know what no one's talking about? The amount of media scrutiny from the Canadian sports channels on Team Canada. I'm hearing about handshake lines and guys talking out of turn, and you can't talk about the NHL athletes like that. I mean, they were on top of these kids with, expert level, questions for non-media trained, really, children.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're teenagers in their early 20s. And then they're like, why are you so distracted? Well, you just told one kid that his NHL team is pissed off at him before the gold medal, before the bronze medal. Like, what are you doing, guys? So the amount, I'm bringing this up because of this. That's an incredible amount of stress. The attitude is, well, they should be able to deal with it. And it's like, guys, I think we're missing the point here a bit. All right. How are they supposed to bond as a team when you're doing everything you can to rip them apart from that? Now, where I'm going with that is this, because we're talking about the team building aspect. Matt, I told you off the air, the amount of team building work I get with organizations is going up every single season, because youth organizations, high-level organizations, it's across the board, are understanding, oh, wow, there's a missing piece when it comes to the team cohesiveness.
Mm-hmm.
To me, now, I love that as it's my job. All right. Of course, it's great for me, but it makes me wonder too of like, well, where are we missing this along the way so much now that they're bringing in a quote unquote team building expert to add this in? I'm going to say it again. I'm very humbled with this work. I love this work. It's very effective work, but should we be alarmed that work is on the rise? Like, are we missing that in North American hockey? And then Matt, are they not missing that overseas?
To your point earlier too, like when we talk about different development models and right and wrong, and for sure, like this isn't just to crucify the way that we do things in Canada or the US, but I think what I'm hoping for after seeing trends like this or making comparisons like that post is some growth. Like maybe there's something that we can look at that we haven't done in 10 to 15 years that other people are doing or other countries are doing, or programs within your region that, that's what they say, right? A good coach is just a good thief. We can steal some of this stuff. Like we can take what is it even stealing?
It's not like they're hiding it.
Matt, let me ask you something. If you look at the Czechia team, right, and you said and you went back and you looked at their roster, what would you say the percentage of those kids that play together for all year are? Like, are the bulk of those players all branched out all over Canada and Europe and playing, or are they playing like if you took the Canadians team and you said, I'm going to put you in a training camp together for 1 year, and you can't go back to your hometown team, you're only going to play together. Don't you think that team wipes the program off the face of the earth?
Absolutely. Yeah, they'd be dominant. And that was another common comment that I saw on the post was, how many kids from Czechia are playing in the CHL, right? Sure, there's plenty of them, but I don't know that we're going to give the CHL credit for their development when they're coming at 16, 17, right? So yeah, like maybe when we're talking about them playing together, maybe it's not 15 years, maybe it's 8. Maybe it's 5, maybe whatever it is, where we see in North America, the vast majority of it, and you guys would see that much more than I would. Like maybe it's 1 or 2. We just got open. Yeah, we just got open borders. We just got open borders in Ontario. So the program that you're with right now is probably the worst program in Ontario because there's so many other programs and they have to be better, right? That's the part.
Matt, there's historical data to support you. I'm pointing at the 1980 Team USA jersey behind me. They went through a 6-month training camp, essentially, leading up to the Olympics. I think most of you know how that one ended. All right, USA won the gold medal in that. But at the time, and you can read, I'm well read on this one. I love that team. That was unheard of 6 months. Like a month, I think, was average at the time, and that was a lot then. Yeah. So I mean, look, the result was that team bonded to the point they beat the greatest hockey team in the world. I could gush about that team, but that team inspired me to do what I do. It's
Right.
well documented. They went extra long. Here, Mike, I'll throw it to you in a minute. Here's a situation I'm watching. Women's Olympic hockey. This is the first year ever where Team USA, Team Canada are not together leading up to the Olympics. They're doing the rivalry series, but they're all playing PWHL hockey.
Right.
It's the first time this has ever happened. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Go USA. Anyway,
Very unique.
I'm interested to see how this plays out.
That's very true.
Yeah. They don't have the year-long Team USA development model right now.
And even what would it look like if we were to, say, make our World Junior selections 3 months before December? Like, what if we're doing it at the end of August, September? Yes, we're going to have to take these kids from their CHL teams and all that. And I know that it's just not going to happen. There's too many people that get hit by it or whatever it looks like. But you can imagine you get selected for a World Junior team in September that plays at the end of December. And, Hockey Canada's offices are in Calgary. Everybody goes to Calgary. That's your team for 3 months, and then we play that tournament. Mike, to your point, I think Canada and the U.S. would absolutely dominate.
Yeah,
and that's
didn't do
from a skill perspective, right? That's just because of how many high-end players that we can develop, and that's what our strength is. European countries are looking at us thinking, man, like we're never going to be able to develop an Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid or somebody like that. It's just not the way that we develop players, but we develop incredible teams. And there's, like we've talked about throughout the episode here, there is somewhere in the middle. There's that sweet spot somewhere in there. That I think that's the $1 million question.
Matt, that is where I beg teams to take team building seriously within the organization. I tell organizations all the time, do not just do it with one team, do every age group together.
Right.
So these kids get to know each other, because there's 100% chance they're going to be moving around in terms of what team they make each year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The other thing too, I'm going to say this too, is and you mentioned it, right? About the amount of time these guys are together or girls are together to get them to understand each other. Here's another interesting scenario, right? Let's just talk about the Olympics with men's hockey, right? 98 Olympics, first time pros are in the Olympics. Canada and USA did not win that Olympics. It was the then Czech Republic. Okay. And, when you're coming into this Olympics, everybody's let's talk like just Team USA real quick. Let's talk a little hockey here, right? People are very interested in the team that was picked because there are some extremely notable names left off the roster right now.
For sure.
But when you look at the roster, it's essentially our Four Nations face-off roster. And I think that, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm not saying this is going to work or not. But my belief is Bill Guerin, the GM, the mindset is these guys know each other and they've got something to play for. They have a why. They've played together already. They have some familiarity with each other. And I think that gives us an edge. I guarantee that is the thought process that he has. We left the leading USA scorer off the team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was his quote, right? If you were just going to take the best scorers or the biggest point guys, then you don't need a general manager, right? Like that, he's trying to build a team in a very short period of time with guys that, some of them know of each other, have played together, all of that stuff. Like, but from a promotion standpoint, like you say, when the media gets involved, like it's the biggest collection of talent. It's
right.
That's how it's branded, when ultimately we're, Sam Bennett's not on Team Canada.
Right.
We know what Sam Bennett has done.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, if we're putting the best collection of talent together, I mean, he was a given to make that team.
Right.
So,
you gotta make the best team. And
right.
look, I'm not to keep quoting Miracle. All right, but common men go nowhere, right? I'm not looking for the right players, Craig. I'm not looking for the best players, Craig. I'm looking for the right ones. Like,
see, now I got to watch the movie again.
Like, my point to people is this is not just Disney. Like, that stuff matters.
Mm.
All right. And you've got to be able to develop it. And I think that, just rounding this out again, that development starts at 8 years old, 6 years old. And I think there's a process that needs to be involved with that. And if we're just plucking top talent, which I understand it. I understand the concept behind that. I think we are really doing the game a disservice, development a disservice. And I'm not just talking about team building. I'm just talking about human development, right?
Yeah.
We're going to lose the best athletes to other sports, right? And I think that by and large, Matt, that's kind of the point when I read your article. It's like, let's just acknowledge that as good as our countries are, and they are phenomenal, They are the top powers in hockey across the board. Something's missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And the other countries are figuring it out.
Right. And that, I think that's, I hope that's what kind of comes across from the post too, and where this conversation kind of comes from. There's a middle to this somewhere. It's not individual talent and it's not all team talent. There's something in the middle. It's not just all development and all winning. There's somewhere in the middle. We said it earlier, and Mike, you referenced it too. When it comes, I think there's always say, hey, we're developing everybody. We want everybody to thrive. We want to that doesn't displace the fact that we all want to win. Like, we're all doing, nobody is putting a team of people together in business, in sport, in whatever. And this is a great group of people. They are terrible at what they do, but what a great group. And let's go out and play. When my stepdaughter is a big basketball player and soccer player. When she's out in the driveway shooting, I'll grab a ball and I'll go out there and shoot with her, and she wants me to defend her and stuff. She's 11, by the way, and she makes a shot on me. I'm not happy. Yeah, and I might push a little bit harder the next time, and then she makes that shot, and now I'm really annoyed because I want to do well. Yeah, I want to have fun and I want to compete, and that's the beauty of sport. And there's so much within those two words that you take through your entire life. Well, so there's somewhere in that middle ground there that I hope Canada looks at the idea of growth or changing what development and that looks like. That maybe we're stealing something from the European model, and maybe the Europeans are stealing something from us. Right. And it's end of the day, it's going to make hockey better. Right. Yeah.
But I think you could destroy the European model tomorrow if you can introduce football, lacrosse, basketball, swimming. Like, I think if you could introduce all those sports into another community, like we are at a, we have all this enrichment, right, of the fact that we have great, like, to Lee's point, I don't think we're doing much wrong. I don't. I think we're just. I think we're just. Sure. It's just we're in a situation where, like, some of the best kid in Sweden is also not the best lacrosse player in Sweden, most likely. Mm-hmm. Here, our best hockey player could be our best baseball player, or our best lacrosse player. So it's like they're choosing different things based off of the fact that they're exposed to so much more, and there's so much less competition in Europe for a kid's attention than us. And that's why it keeps coming back to make it fun, get them out there longer. Keep them on the ice longer, keep it cheaper, find ways to keep people in here as long as possible, so that we hockey people win the battle of the baseball and lacrosse kid, not the lacrosse and the baseball coach. Yeah. Again, it's great for the kid, but if we want to grow our sport, we got to find a way to get kids to stay in our sport. Yeah.
Mike, I think too, and you said this, I think it's just the pursuit of being better. We're great. We're great at hockey. Our countries are great at hockey, but the pursuit is, can we be even better? Mm-hmm. And I think that what is grinding everyone's gears is, I fear maybe we're getting a little complacent with our development models as these work, and that maybe we're slowing down a little bit. Like, maybe this is not like when the American development model came out 15 years ago, man, did that work, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, we haven't really changed it that much since then.
Well, not only that, we're going the other way. If you really look at deep down in statistics, and this is something you're going to see over the next couple of years, we are going away. More communities are going away from, like, the cross ice model and the development model. And the station based model. They're moving away from it, because what's happening is more teams are propping up, going with this whole other, like, model that people think is the right model, and the pendulum's going to swing. Mm-hmm. We might still be able to play at the highest level still, because we have the most people, but the pendulum is swinging where I think there's going to be a lot more kids not playing anymore. The numbers don't lie, whether it's
numbers are
COVID
scary
or whatever. Yeah. The fact is, less kids are playing now than there were. Yeah, but we have more teams. So it's
true,
and it costs twice as much.
That's just it. They're coming from everywhere. Like, end of the day, and I think we'd all agree, My little guy plays hockey. My daughter's not a big sports person. She's more into the theater and singing and that type of thing. But she plays soccer and baseball in the summer. My stepdaughter plays basketball and soccer. She plays everything. She'll come home today from school and have signed up for something else. Right. It's great. We just want kids involved in things. I don't want kids sitting at home staring at a screen, not being able to socialize, not being able to learn, more about their bodies, about their athleticism, about, what that enjoyment feels like. And so number one, the concern is the numbers in hockey are dropping, and we know where that comes from. We know its cost. We know all of those things. So what are we doing to not only counter that, but like you said, grow the game? Right. Because, we're going to lose kids in hockey. I mean, it's religion in Canada, in Europe, and some of the countries that I've looked at. Germany is the example that I've used most often in that case. I mean, hockey might be fifth on the list. So right. They've got to get kids interested in it young so that they stay with it and grow within the game. Where here we just assume if you're a Canadian boy or girl at some point, you're going to play hockey because that's just what Canadians
have your chance.
Do. And it's not the case anymore. It's great that they have options for a different sport, but even losing the sport aspect is what I'm starting to get worried about with kids in general that are just going to be disinterested in doing anything but sitting in front of their PlayStation, right?
Yeah, that's actually a terrifying thought. Guys, I'm looking at the time, and believe it or not, our audience has other things they got to do. For those of you listening at home,
what else are we gonna do?
You guys, we could go on for hours. I know we could go on for hours on this topic. But look, here's what I'm saying.
Fixing their car. They need Mike's help fixing their cars.
They got to go to the.
You don't want to call me.
They got to go to the mechanics podcast. You got that Fix My Car podcast.
You want to set a clock in the rink? Call me, but don't call me.
I do want to say this kind of in closing. We talk. All of us talk about stealing things from other countries and things like this. And here's the truth, right? This is not a world war, right? This is sports, right? And we're all part of the global community. And I alluded to this earlier. I don't think anyone's really holding their development tactics close to the chest. People will share this stuff. It's out there. Matt, you have been the absolute biggest steward of sharing that information in the world, in my opinion. All right. In a time period where we can do that, you're doing it. So the parting message here, whether you're Love Team Canada, US, it doesn't matter, is if you really want to learn, there's no excuse not to learn. Mm-hmm. The information is out there. And I think that is one of the biggest missing pieces. And I want to say this too. If you're a volunteer coach, I mean it when I say God bless you. All right. You are volunteering to do something, you're taking the time to do it. What I would say to you is this: if it's just a volunteer position, I get it. I'm not going to berate you for that because you're donating time. Mm-hmm. But if you really want to be great at coaching, you have to become a teacher. And if you want to be a great teacher, you've got to be a great learner. Mm-hmm. And we have never had the access to information that we have today. It has never been easier to learn. Right. So that's my parting message to the coaches out there and the parents, right? If this interests you, if you've hit the hour, 10-minute mark with us, you're clearly interested in this stuff, right? Go deep, go GPT resources. Just find a way to learn. Obviously, I'm not just saying this, but read Matt's stuff. It is phenomenal stuff. And I can tease it too. Go to mattdumouchelle.com, which is just launched. He's allowing us to be the first people to launch that. I appreciate that, Matt.
That's right.
To check this stuff out. It's fascinating stuff. But to anybody coaching and volunteering their time, I sincerely mean this. Thank you. No matter what your level of involvement is, we need you. We need you. If we don't have you, we can't make this happen anyway.
Yeah. Sorry. Look, outside of parents, especially when we talk about youth hockey, there's nobody that's going to have more influence on a child at that age than their coach.
Right.
It's just the way it is. And, to say that you're a coach and that you're developing players and not trying to find ways to develop yourself is completely unfair.
Right.
You can't expect kids to get better over the course of the year if you are as well not trying to get better over the year. I mean, how many coaches do you guys know that have coached for 20 years or 30 years or whatever it is, and they're doing the same drills and there's no evolution and there's no new information or no new ideas that they're even trying
No
on.
creativity.
You don't have to watch a couple of videos, go to the coach's site, watch a couple of videos, pull a few up on YouTube, whatever that looks like, and just see. It doesn't have to be for you, but it's another angle of something. Instead of putting the blinders on and say, I've coached for 20 years, I know what I'm talking about. Turning that around and saying, I've coached for 20 years, I can't wait to find out what I'm going to learn in the next 20 years.
I get that.
It's such a different sentence. So,
Matt, I say this all the time. Good coaches know everything, and great coaches know nothing.
Yeah.
I say that's my quote, because my passion to learn about not just coaching, but the history of the sport. I nerd out and send Matt pictures of books I'm reading. All right. It's like again, you don't have to share that at home. Don't get me wrong. That's just me, but I'm saying that there's got to be a common thread there if you want to learn. So, Mike, do you have anything else? We have to close this out. I'm looking at the time right now. Mike, any final thoughts from you?
If you want to win World Juniors, go educate yourself and find a way to find out what everybody else is doing, and then take whatever you can do with your organization and implement it. And there's, like you said, both of you, there's so many resources out there. And don't at me if you're a lazy coach. I don't want to hear from you.
Find it everywhere. And Lee, like you mentioned, and thanks for mentioning it. I've just put my website out there, mattdumouchelle.com. Man, I love this stuff. And I hope it comes across when we have these conversations and in the articles and things like that. I want to be part of a solution to whatever organization, whatever age group, whatever level coach, experience, whatever it is. There's ways to do this better, and that's not saying you're not doing it well. There's just always ways to improve, other ideas to share, things like that. So if there's any way that, I can help you as a coach, I can help you as a family, as an organization, I'm excited to do it and excited to launch the website and kind of take that jump into this and kind of go head on. So thanks again for having me. Always great to see you guys.
No, it's great to have you, Matt. And I'll say to the audience listening, Matt, we use the word hockey ambassador a lot. To me and to Mike, you are the most true hockey ambassador when it comes to this game in terms of what you talk about. I don't think there's anybody better. So thank you for coming on here today. And you gave me the last word. So I'll finish by saying go USA. No, I was just kidding here. It's been a great episode, my friends. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you continue listening. Also, this has been a great conversation. I always talk about this on the show. These are conversations. Conversations help for growth. But I definitely want to give you a say at home. If you enjoyed this, you have a question, you have a comment, you agree, you don't agree, email us. We'll get that over to Matt as well, right? team@ourkidsplayhockey.com, or you can use the link accompanying the show in the description. Send us your name, where you're from, any comments you have on this. If someone's doing this right, someone's doing it wrong in your community, let us know. We want to discuss those things on the show without, while protecting the names of the innocent, we always say, all right? But for Matt Dumouchelle, mattdumouchelle.com, check that out. Mike Bonelli, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on the next episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Take care, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.